From a defabricated solar-powered garden shed in Rockland County, New York, USA, this is Stand Up with Pete Dominic. On today's episode, how to maintain calm during your next 4th of July gathering when your patriotic pet bald eagle suddenly pecks your friend's eyes out. And now, the podcast host who would never go near a bald eagle because he knows eagles and fireworks are not a great combo, Pete Dominic!
Oh, yes, they hate each other. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another special episode of Stand Up with me. I'm your host, Pete Dominic. I can't do it without you, the audience. Thank you very much for pressing play. If you haven't reviewed the show on Spotify and Apple, now might be the day. And thank you very much for subscribing to the program, where every day I talk to the smartest people in the world. And for some reason, they answer my questions. I press record, and we learn about how better to navigate our lives, reduce suffering, find more joy, and understand what the hell is going on in our world, in our lives, in our community, in our planet. And today we are going to talk with the great Dr. Christina Greer of Fordham University. Just another one of these amazing people that I am so honored to be able to be in conversation with. We had a great chat about the 4th of July and Independence Day and history. We talked about the Supreme Court's decisions on affirmative action and more. Talked a little bit about loss and life in general, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. After my conversation with Chrissy Greer, you will hear Danny Glover performing Frederick Douglass's famous 4th of July speech because a couple of listeners, Franz Pants, said, I didn't love the Jeff Daniels reading of the Gettysburg Address. I would have preferred the Frederick Douglass reading of his 4th of July speech. And so I found it on the lines, the internets, and I will share Danny Glover's performance of that at the end after my conversation with Christina Greer. I don't have much preamble on today's program because the earth stopped. The country stopped because it was July 4th. And really, who was doing anything? I mean, the big story yesterday was there was just a lot of violence, as there is often in America, and a lot of accidents with people either dying or being maimed as a result of the fireworks they were setting off. By the way, thanks to everybody who reached out and said they enjoyed my dad's reporting on the fireworks story yesterday. That was a lot of fun. If you didn't hear that, go back and listen to that now. But let's get to my conversation with Dr. Christina Greer of Fordham University. She, of course, is a political scientist, associate professor at Fordham, author of a couple of books. She got a new book that she's working on. She is the host of the Blackest Questions on the Greer Podcast Network, co-host of FAQ NYC. She has a column in the Amsterdam News, and she's one of the best. Love talking to her. Always so honest, so forthright, so funny, and so thought-provoking. So let's do it right now. You can follow her on Twitter, by the way, at Dr_CM Greer. Find out more about her in today's show notes. Let's do it. There she is. Hello, my friend. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I love being on the show.
How do you feel about 4th of July, Independence Day? What did you do growing up? A little girl? Do you have any connections to it? Do you have any thoughts about it, around it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I spent my childhood in Philly. So 4th of July obviously was like the jam. And you'd go downtown and you'd watch the fireworks. One of my most memorable 4th of Julys is like watching the Pointer Sisters. You know, you have these random memories. The Pointer Sisters were like performing. Now I'm just like, I don't care. I really don't. I mean, this country is like a shell of itself. It always has been. So it's not a holiday that moves me. I'm like, okay, you guys are independent from Britain, but that doesn't do anything for Black people. It's, so sure. If someone's like, hey, we're having rooftop fireworks, I'm not going to be like, I don't celebrate the holiday. Sure, I'll go and have some drinks and like watch some fireworks. But it's not like I'm going to Old Navy and wearing my red, white, and blue and stuff like that. Is it true that you were at an outdoor barbecue, there were fireworks, and you started screaming, down with the fireworks, down with them, smoke them out? Well, I'm always fascinated about the number of idiots that blow themselves up in their houses every year. Here it is. I put it out there last night. I gave it with you. I said
ignorantly obvious. I try to be ignorant. My whole career, I'm fine with it. Whatever the embarrassment comes, let it wash over me, and then I'll be a better person. But are fireworks at people's homes and residences that people buy and set off themselves, is that a white thing? And I got a variety of answers, and I have feelings as to why that is. We see things as we are, not as they are. I get it. Do you have thoughts on the cultural connections to fireworks? Did you?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the videos we see now are just, white folks. I mean, that one that we just saw with them literally like exploding the car and almost killing all the children. But, I think
you act like we all saw that same one.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, oh, the whites, you're at it again. But I don't think that it might be disproportionately white people, but I definitely remember, my cousin had fireworks and my uncle was always very serious about you can let off some fireworks, but they have to be, this part of the yard. And, they were clearly very regulated, but don't forget about that football player, right? Jason Pierre-Paul, who blew up his fingers. I'm like, you make your money with your hands. Like, I don't understand what you're doing. So I think it might lean toward white nonsense. Yeah. But I don't think you guys have a monopoly on fireworks.
I remember,
you could buy them in Massachusetts or you can buy them in New Hampshire, but not Massachusetts.
Right.
People would always go, white boys I know, they would always go to New Hampshire, buy these fireworks, but the police officers in New Hampshire would just take down the number clearly, because the minute you drove into across the line to Massachusetts, you get pulled over and they take your fireworks. I mean, it was just like a racket. So I don't know. I just don't feel like, I also have like I think a healthy respect for water and fire. So, I have a healthy respect for the ocean. I have a healthy respect for fire of all sorts. So to me, I'm like, why would I invite hot fire into my home in a space where it's like, this is dynamite, y'all? Like, I'm not a trained professional. Like, no, I also am very clear. People are good at what they're good at, So like when my plumber or electrician comes, I'm not hovering over like, shouldn't you be doing? No, I'm not asking him to work on this last chapter. So I'm going to mind my business.
You're illustrating why you're such a great guest on a podcast, certainly mine, because sometimes when you're talking, it makes me want to be with you to experience your limits. Like, I want to be with you at the beach to see what your respect and limits are for water in the ocean. I want to be with you around the fireworks or a fire itself and see, where does Chrissy draw the line?
Right. Where it's like, I'm out. Listen, because when I tell people, when we go to the ocean, I go to the beach now quite a bit. And I'm like, listen, don't be playing in the water because I'm not the one to run in after you.
You won't save it. You would not, if there were a child drowning, you would yell, you would make people aware, but you're not running in for the child.
Listen, water safety says don't run in. It says throw them something.
There's nobody
I don't
there.
have anything
There's
but a
nobody.
Beach towel.
There's nobody on the beach. It's just you enjoying a sunset, and there's a child flailing. Help me. What do? You don't run in there.
No. Water safety says don't do that. Because guess what? Then it's 2 drowned people in the ocean, not 1. No.
Professor Chrissy Greer.
Right. Child drowner, Chrissy Greer. But I interviewed Cullen Jones, Black Olympic gold medalist from, swim team, swam with Michael Phelps. And the podcast episode aired around Memorial Day on purpose because I talked to him a lot about water safety. This man has several Olympic medals. And he was like, I would not run into the ocean because you're not supposed to. Because obviously, if you're panicking and I'm trying to save you, you were going to pull both of us into the ocean. He's like, you're supposed to find something. He said he doesn't even swim in a pool by himself.
That's
because,
extreme.
God forbid you bump your head. He's like, you can drown anywhere. So I was like, if Olympic gold medalist Cullen Jones don't run into the ocean,
wow,
I'm going to err on the side of caution.
Expected you to have that kind of data to back up your ethical choice in that situation. If it's
and I think a lot of people panic, so it's like, oh, I gotta go, and it's like, no, don't.
No, I'd be a headline for sure.
And also, I swim, but I always tell people, I'm like, I am a strong enough swimmer to save myself. I'm not a strong enough swimmer to save both of us. Like, I was never a lifeguard, never interested in being a lifeguard. I'm not interested in the life-saving business. Like, that's a certain type of person. That's not me. That's not me.
All right. Well, so you're not buying any fireworks either. You don't purchase them for other people.
No.
You're very good at you're very good at gift giving. You're very good at gift giving. Maybe you would be so thoughtful as to gift someone some fireworks.
No, the only fire related thing I'm going to gift is a candle.
That's as close as you will get to.
And some incense.
What
They look
about
like fireworks? No sparklers. No.
a firework shaped like a candle?
No.
Okay.
We're staying away from fireworks. You know why? You know what fireworks are?
Yes.
Dynamite.
Yes. They're
what I don't
bombs.
play with?
They're bombs.
Dynamite. Yeah.
They're
and call me old fashioned, but I don't like bombs
me neither.
In my home.
Yeah.
And I don't like them close to me. Like, I feel like fireworks and guns are in the same category for me.
And you love nature and you love birds. How do you think they feel about all these fireworks displays?
Well, I mean, this is, I've written about this in my weekly column in the Amsterdam News before, but, for 4th of July, there are a lot of animals and there are a lot of returning veterans of all stripes who hate the 4th of July because all you hear is pop, 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 pop. And it reminds them of highly stressful and really traumatic situations. So I just think we're also very insensitive to our veteran population and what they've experienced, because I'm sure it sounds a lot like Fallujah in some communities. And then you remember last year, or was it, 2020? I was living with my dad because of the pandemic. That's when I was birding. But, in New York, remember, it was just all these pallets of fireworks were just being placed in neighborhoods or found in neighborhoods. And people were like, we are under siege. It was like for the entire month of June and July, people were just like letting off fireworks every night.
No, thank you.
Every night.
Yeah, no, it's happening in my community and I hate it every year. And that's why I bring it up. And so I share, and many people share our frustration and feelings about it. But then other people say, loosen up. And I know those people are wrong. Okay. So speaking of loosening up, I got to talk with you about the Supreme Court and its decisions that it is come down with. You had a really amazing conversation I highly recommend everybody go listen to with Michael Harriet over at the Griot, where you host your podcast. And I don't know where to start other than I want to get you wound up with, you're not surprised. This is America. Like, you have thoughts about the outcome here and the precedent for it.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, nothing in this country surprises me anymore. Nothing. And my grandmother used to say before she passed, Chrissy, the only time you should be surprised is when you're surprised. So, like, everybody wants me to get it up for this Supreme Court decision. It's like, well, if you got a court that's 6-3, I knew this train was coming into the station. The question isn't if, it's just when. And we know it's going to come in June. It didn't come in June 2022. It's going to come in June 2023. I already knew that. So it's like, we all know that if you're paying attention and you read 2 sentences of the news. So then start planning for that, because affirmative action's on the table. LGBTQ rights are on the table. That they were never going to allow student debt to be on the table. So, okay, knowing this stuff, then let's organize. Let's get people in so that if we do have another Supreme Court opening, we actually have a Senate that means something. So like Manchin and Sinema, get them out of there when you can. There are all these other things that we could be doing. But, folks are running around with their hair on fire like you didn't know this train was already docking. So I'm not about to lose sleep and or years off my life, because this country can kill you, especially as a Black person. And I just had a friend die suddenly last week and I'm just like traumatized.
Yeah, I know.
And like still moving through grief. And like, this country can take you out. Anything can take you out. We saw this with COVID. So I'm just kind of like, all right, well, we knew this was happening. Why is everybody acting like it's, COVID that came out of, that's something that really did come out of nowhere. Right. But then again, did it? Because I started buying toilet paper and food in January when I was like, shit's popping out in Italy. What's this? And last I checked, we still have international flights. So I was slowly like buying my legumes and like stocking up on toilet paper and bottled water since January of 2020. So, I mean, like, that was a shock. Sure, I get it. And I'm privileged because I had money to do that, blah, blah, blah. But like these Supreme Court cases, I was like, we knew this. The second Kavanaugh and Cody Barrett got confirmed.
Right.
Like, all right, well, this is all off the table.
Yes. And a lot more probably coming, and much we've already seen with those three.
And guess what? Hey, didn't Black people tell y'all that? Didn't Black people say, hey, LGBTQ plus community, especially wealthy white gay men, right, who don't think that they're ever part of the group? Right. It's like, you guys are on the chopping block soon. It's like, no, you're being hysterical. You're being histrionic. You guys are just, trying to make it seem like something's there and it's not. We're like, all right, well, again, we tried to tell you.
You can go back too and talk about history when it comes to these types of ideas. correcting for the past. I mean, you can go back 400 years, you can go back in our lifetimes, you can go back, and there's data to show what happens when you ban these policies that are meant to create equity. But I think the most important thing that you and Michael Harriot and others were saying that they banned affirmative action for black people, not for wealthy folks, legacies, et cetera. They still have affirmative action.
And don't forget the military academies, they didn't ban that.
Well, yeah,
like, you can always fight your wars. But, listen, the data has always shown white women are the primary beneficiaries of affirmative action. This is, creating the system where you're having these like Canadian Asians fight this like white supremacist agenda.
Right.
And it's just like, guess what? Asian Americans, first of all, you're here on the backs of civil rights struggles. We'll just put that to the side. But like we see time and time again in a lot of these like local fights and state level fights, it's like far right white groups are using Asian Americans to sort of hit kind of blacks and Latinos on one side and Asian Americans and
men use women and black folks, white folks use black folks. And
Well, as I talk about in my book, Black Ethnics, for a long time, it was like whites versus non-whites. And now I think it's like blacks versus non-blacks. And you have like a lot of immigrant groups who just don't want to be in the black category. So like they'll become strange bedfellows with kind of far right white folks because it's like, well, at least I'm not with the black people. Because to be black is to assume to like not be in the best schools and like all these other things that people know. Like that's the thing. That inequities exist in black neighborhoods and black culture. So you're trying your hardest not to be with black people. It's like, but you're acknowledging that black people are treated differently, even though you're like, well, black people aren't treated differently. It's like, you're acknowledging that they are. I mean, what's being lost in this whole argument is like the K through 12 argument. It's like, because there's such rampant inequities, starting with pre-K with black and Latino communities, that when we get to high school and we're having these hard conversations about what a diverse intellectual community looks like on a collegiate level, you're not addressing the fact that, well, for the past 13 years, 14 in some cases, black people have had a really distinct, different educational experience in America that's supposed to be the same. We know that ever since, K through 12s became primarily black and Latino, by and large, they've been systematically defunded. Same thing happened with housing projects, right? So when it was white people, the government had all the money. When it became black people, it's like, oh, well, this doesn't seem like, social program we want to support. So we're not funding it. We're giving white people all these tax breaks so their kids can go to either these Christian schools or they can have these vouchers or they're creating special charter schools for them. They always have done that, but now they're doing it on like the crazy scale post George W. Bush. And so then we get to 12th grade and it's like, well, I don't want to give black people a leg up. It's like, you're hardly giving us a leg up because guess what? If you had to go to the schools that we go to, by and large, you never would accept it. Like, that it would create inequities. So you're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
Yes, the point, say more.
And like, there it is.
Say more about the K through 12 point. I feel like that is getting under discussed and undercover because, I remember learning about the data on universal pre-K that where it was available or even if people could afford it, there's so much data that if you had pre-K, universal pre-K, you end up in a far different, quote, better place at age 18.
Right.
And so it really does start with early childhood education, much less K through 12, which is, they fund so many of these schools so much less as a result of property taxes. So it does start there. Is there anything else you would add to that?
Well, we're one of the only countries that, links our property taxes to our education system. 2, the only reason why de Blasio isn't an abject failure as the 109th mayor of New York City is because the first 2 years on the job, he actually did work and put together universal pre-K in one of the largest public school district in the country. And then just sort of fell asleep for the next 6 years. But it's so important that we kind of level the playing field. But, a few years ago on the Upper West Side, there was a conversation about merging these 2 elementary schools. One primarily serviced the housing project, which is by and large black and Latino, and another school, the public school, that serviced the wealthy whites that live on the Upper West Side. And of course, because it's public, they put in $5,000, $10,000 each as a family. So they've got an art teacher and a yoga teacher and after school programs and all these things that public schools do not provide, right? They've got sports and everything else. So there's a conversation about merging these 2 schools because it's like, well, one is completely underfunded and doesn't get any goods and services and resources. And the other one is essentially operating like a private school. Peter, you would have thought that you were telling these white parents that, to have their 5-year-old go to school with a black kid was like akin to, the failures of society. I mean, it looked like a debate from 1962 Mississippi.
Wow.
And so there are a lot of assumptions that, if I go to school with black kids, then all of a sudden my kid won't learn. And it's like, well, if you really do believe that, then maybe you should care about the inequities of education that are happening, because you're acknowledging that they're happening. But also it's like, they're 5. They're talking about glue and colors and numbers. Like, stop it. Like, there's this assumption that white kids are smarter and black kids aren't. It's like, no, you got resources. But like, are you also afraid of putting your kid in a competitive environment with kids of color and like letting that conversation play out from the beginning? Because it's one thing if you're in school together in 9th grade and it's like, well, you've had not just a 400-year head start, but like you've had a 9-year head start. But it's like, well, what if we put each other in the same classroom from day one? See how it shakes out. Like that's not a conversation a lot of parents have.
Wow.
They fought this tooth and nail. And then you fast forward to our specialized high schools where it's like, it's only a test. So it's like, yeah, half the kids who were in there go to testing centers since they were in 5th grade every Saturday. And like, you're a little drone test taker. Good. But like, do you have a personality? Are you interesting? Are you actually really good at school? No, not necessarily. You're just really good at this one test that got you into the school. And all of a sudden we've got 7 black kids going to Stuyvesant, which is like our, top specialized public school. And it's like, well, black kids clearly aren't smart. It's like, they didn't sit there for the last 5 years and like go to a testing center. So, I mean, it's like the point of the school is completely useless because as an educator, I'm only interested in a diverse classroom.
Yeah.
And that's diversity in all senses of the word. Class
yeah,
diversity,
I was going to...
racial and ethnic diversity, like all different types of diversity.
That's what I wanted to certainly ask you. You're a college professor. You're at Fordham. You are with these young people now for years, for 3 months of their lives, a semester. And why does it actually matter in the classroom to have a diversity of all things, from ethnicity to gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomics, language, religion, all of it? Why make the case?
Well, first of all, homogeneity of thought is the whole point of a liberal arts education, right? What is the point of being in a classroom if I say, the Democrats are right about everything, and everyone in the class is like, I agree. Where's the nuance? Where's the debate? Where's the discovery where it's like the whole point of me being with you, especially in this crucial age between like 18 and 22, it's like you're coming to me and it's like, well, I believe this. It's like, well, hey, let's interrogate it. And I'm not saying that you don't believe it, but like, let's look at it. Is it something that you believe because you've never heard an opposing thought? Is it something your parents believe and they've just said it enough so you think you believe it? And so once we start to interrogate, you're like, actually, my parents believe that. Maybe I don't believe that. Or I've never interacted with someone from an opposing view, and maybe we can have a discussion. I might not necessarily change my opinion, but I might be able to see where you're coming from, right? Now, I don't engage in debates where it's like, I'm not going to sit here and defend my humanity for anyone. That's not what we're doing.
Right.
But we can have good faith conversations about politics and policy to sort of see it's like, well, hey, I'm not saying to change your opinion, but maybe let's strengthen why you feel this way.
Right.
And it might be because that's the way your parents felt and that's the way you feel too. Awesome. But it might be like, well, I've always been thinking that because I grew up in upstate New York and we didn't have any gay people or we didn't have any Latinos or whatever it may be. And now that I'm with gay people and Latinos, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not true, or that's not the case. And like, I need to interrogate where the foundation of my opinions come from. And so that's my job, to help you on that intellectual journey. Because guess what? Opinions aren't facts. So helping you to decipher the difference between the two is also really important. And so we go through these like intellectual exercises throughout the semester, right? We can question how wonderful the framers were. It's like, well, they did have enslaved people and they didn't let their wives vote. Like, so what about it? Right? Like, everyone's supposed to have a favorite president in my class. It's like, and recognizing all these men are flawed. Right. So it's like, I'm not saying find the perfect president. There is none. But with their gross imperfections, can we find something that is strong enough where we believe like, okay, I can sort of hold two things in my mind at the same time.
Jimmy Carter.
Like Jimmy Carter is my favorite living president. You have to have two.
Oh.
You have to have a favorite living president. You have to have a favorite deceased president. Jimmy Carter is my favorite living president. LBJ is my favorite all-time president. Right. But when I'm with certain people who were in the Vietnam War, or their parents were in the Vietnam War, and they had some serious upbringings because, dad may have been on opioids or, lost a limb or whatever it may be. The Vietnam War may not have been kind to their family. If I say LBJ is my favorite president, people are looking at me like I'm crazy. So it's like, well, for me, and I can explain, for me, it's his signing of the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Immigration Act, the Housing Act, what he was able to do with Southern politics that makes him and his, mentorship of Barbara Jordan, that puts him in my favorite category.
Right.
But that doesn't mean he has to be in your favorite category because your family may have been affected by the Vietnam War in a way that
do you mention this at your speeches at the Vietnamese American keynote speech?
Right, listen, hey, but here's the thing. When I went to Vietnam, I spent 3.5 weeks there and they were like, welcome. Like, hey, we fucking won. Like, we don't have beef. Like, we won. So like, you can come here all you want and spend your good American dollars, just like y'all did last time. And the result will be the same. We're winning.
I thought it was a little much, though, that you wore the LBGA T-shirt.
No, I didn't wear my LBGA
You did not?
T-shirt.
Oh, I thought you. Sorry.
I did it.
Oh, no, you make really great points about why diversity in the classroom matters. So the question, what do you think of the actual judgment? Did you read? I don't know if you read their judgments in the case, the conclusions.
I read like snippets. I'm not a lawyer, so some of this legalese I don't fully understand anyway. The
arguments being made then about it that we've got equity. I mean, you heard Mike Pence make the argument. We're there, and everybody quoting, obviously, Dr. King, even though
they don't stop quoting this man.
Yeah, it's tough. So any reaction to the defense of the judgment, or do we just move on to something more important?
No, there is no defense of it.
Right.
But there's no surprise in it either. So, and as Black people have been telling everybody, it's like they keep having these rulings. When we think about the Voting Rights Act rulings from 2 years ago, not the most recent ones. But it's like when they come from Black people, TikTok, everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, we keep telling y'all that, but like nobody wants to believe it. So it's like, all right, well, we're just going to keep fighting for this damn country that like no one seems to understand who she is. She doesn't change. I mean, she changes a lot, but she doesn't change that much. I mean, like, we grow different flowers, but like the soil's still the same. So there's a lot of progress that's been made. Obviously, two of us are on a podcast together, and Black woman, white man, but the foundation of this country, as I always say, rooted in patriarchy, capitalism, anti-Black racism, and white supremacy, according to bell hooks, which I fundamentally believe, it's like, if that's the foundation and we refuse to change said foundation, we keep building a different house that looks very differently every, generation, which is great. And we make, adaptations on the house, but the foundation is the same.
One of the ways that is actively happening is that we're not going to be telling or learning, or we are censoring accurate history or history in general. And the news
we've never told accurate history. That's why I have my podcast, Blackest Questions. We know about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks.
Right.
We don't even have accurate Black history.
So, but when things like the 1619 Project, when new tellings, more accurate tellings are published, they are going to squash them, censor them, ban them. DeSantis over the weekend, they had this Moms for Liberty summit. He talked about how he's against woke like 27 times, and they basically canceled anything that looks or smells like DEI, not only K through 12, but most egregiously, not that that wasn't already so deeply offensive, at the college level, too. I don't understand what that means.
Well, I mean, this is just like a systemic continuation of what this country has always done in educational systems. I mean, we've never learned accurate history of this country. Never. Now it's just even more sanitized, but like we've never had real conversations. We've had sanitized versions of the brutal act that is U.S. chattel slavery. We've never had real conversations about genocide, mass genocide, like the hundreds of tribes that existed. Fourth grade, it's like, oh, I learned about the Cherokee and the Algonquin and the Navajo. It's like, right. But if we had real history, like now in New York, everyone's like, we're here on the land of the Lenape. And it's like, okay, well, now that's like the hot new thing to say.
Yeah.
But like, do people even know what the Lenape did? I mean, they were huge, so like we learned about hunter-gatherers versus,
Yeah.
plains and terrains people. But like, we don't know that history. I mean, there's so many
And that
gaps.
matters right now to Native people. I just got back from a conference. It's like so in my mind. That history matters today, right now, in millions of people's lives.
Right. And like our, reparations for them is like, oh, here's a casino.
Now, the Navajo Nation, I forget which state, like can't get water. They're trucking in water. I mean water.
It's insane. Listen, I drove cross country, which again, I implore all of my students to do at least once.
Oh, yeah.
Northern route one time, southern route another time.
Oh.
And just so you can see this country, just so you can see how insane it is that one person is supposed to unify all of us. And not just all of us as like people, but like the different terrains, So like I'm about to spend my birthday in the desert. Because I've spent my birthday at the beach. I've spent my birthday in the mountains. I've spent my birthday in rivers and valleys. So I was like, oh, I've never spent a birthday in the desert. But like, just think about the state of California. You can go skiing in the morning and surfing in the afternoon. Like, and then in the desert by night. So there's a way that this country is so incredibly diverse. But I remember driving and everything looks like a Microsoft Word ad, right? It's beautiful. Like those blue and white Simpsons clouds in the sky, these like yellowish tan, hay barrels that are just in the fields with like green grass. I mean, it's gorgeous. Like I always say, if I were a fashion designer, I would just drive cross country because like the colors in nature don't make sense, but they make sense, right? And then all of a sudden, it would just turn to like brown grass, dead trees. And I was like, oh, we must be, yep, there it is. You've just now entered such and such reservation. I was like, this country legit saw all, and land does die, right? So it's like, this land is dead. It's barren. It's never going to produce anything. You guys can live here. So then it's like, you can get cigarettes and alcohol and shit food, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Those communities are devastated.
And that's not all reservations. I'm not saying that, but you know what I'm saying? But it's like what we have done to Native peoples, what we've done to Black people, what, obviously the mental trip we've done to white women. Oh, Lord. Like, it's beyond criminal, right? And you built a whole country for free. Like, imagine whatever your heart's desire is, Peter.
Well, at an expense to those who built it, I suppose.
Yeah, well, so it's like, I mean, Black people, this is why I think Black Twitter is so great. And like how Black comedy, I was just talking to a Jewish friend of mine about how I really, as you know, I love comedy. So I've read a lot about Jewish comedians and obviously the roots of Jewish comedy and, post-Holocaust Jewish comedy. And there haven't really been a lot of Black books about Black comedy. There's like Black books about like Richard Pryor or, certain individuals, but not like the 400 years of like why it is that Black people can find the funny in like the worst circumstances, or we just make funny out of stuff. Obviously the submersive. I mean, Black Twitter, again, undefeated, right? Or the day Queen Elizabeth died when Black Twitter met Irish Twitter. And like, again, collective trauma, the greatest day to be on Twitter. Like, I feel badly for anybody who wasn't on Twitter the day that Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, boy. Well, you can always go back and relive it because I had no idea about the latter.
When Black Twitter met their Irish cousins, was the greatest day on Twitter. I got to
go find that and read some of them.
It was the greatest day I've ever had on Twitter. I couldn't leave. It was like being at a family reunion that you like stumbled upon. It was like, hey, cuz. And like literally people were like, oh no, here we are over here. And it's like, well, we've been over here. And it's like, what? You guys have your own Twitter? It's like, yeah. I mean, we found each other on the day.
That's crazy. I got to go find that.
Reasons, right?
Well,
don't forget.
Clearly.
Like Jamaica Twitter. And Ghanaian Twitter, they had
go back to Black humor and why that is. Just finish that up.
This country has just done such horrific things. I mean, like I look the way I look because of like rape and brutality, right? I mean, like my last name is my last name because of rape and brutality. Like, when you say like, oh, I'm from Florida, I'm from Tennessee, it's like, right, because of plantations or whatever it may be. So it's like we literally wear the mark of what went down in this country generations ago on a daily basis. And so it's like, yeah, that's just, what it is. And, when you think about like when old school Black people are always like, who are your people? Like, you brought a boy home and it's like, well, who are his people? And they're always concerned about like, who are his people? And it's like, because you got to make sure you're not dating a cousin because, people were kidnapped and sold off and all these other things. So we have all these traditions that we just think are like old fashioned, but it's like, no, they're rooted in a real conversation about what this country has done to us. And so, and how we've thrived, and like, there's a tension between like people like me who are like, listen, my ancestors built this country, so it's mine. Like, I travel the world, and I'm like, yeah, I'm American because like I've been here longer than most Americans, generation wise. Then other people are like, this place is a garbage dump and I hate it. And it's like, both things can be true.
Right. I feel
both
like
things can be true.
When you say both things can be true, many things can be true. And just to kind of wrap it up, we could talk just about how you can have thoughts about here on Independence Day about this country and its history, and you should, I hope, and what it means today. But I think that that's kind of like just a distraction from the idea of maybe embracing or enjoying or taking happiness out of your community, the one that you built, the network that you have, the beautiful people in your life. You're certainly one in my life. We talk all the time. And like, I don't know what that's called, our community.
I'm calling you Peter. Well, here's the thing. You know, I've always said this, Pete. It's like, I'm a plant. I lean towards the light. Just like trees and plants, and when you go out in nature, like they will find the sun, right? This is why trees can sometimes grow at like a 50-degree angle. It's like, what? It's like, well, the canopy was blocking their sunlight, so they had to move, and they just lean themselves all the way to a side to like find the sunlight. I'm going to do that. There are way too many great things that are in this world, in this country, with all these things going on. It's like, it's too many good things for me to sort of lose years off of my life focusing on the horrid. I need to stay focused. I need to do what I can do in my capacity to sort of make things better. I have chosen to educate future generations. That seems to be my contribution. My other contribution is I'm really good at connecting people. That's what I do. And then after that, like, I got to be, as COVID shows us, you know, like, we are not guaranteed to be on this planet for a long time. You do what you can. You be a great person. You know, my friend who just died, who was 46, he had a heart attack, just boom, done. Flew out to California within 24 hours for his funeral. So many people that he had connected. So many people. He's Muslim. Dropped on a dime to fly out to California, right? From all walks of life. I saw people I hadn't seen since college. He didn't even go to my college. His brother went to my college for a year. Like, that's how he was just one of those people. And I mean, like, you know, the grief is real, obviously. Like, and I got to work on how to move through it because he's my first adult friend who's died. So, and I'm not accustomed to that because also you realize, hey, I was really blessed. I didn't go to funerals during COVID, right? Like, I was really lucky. I was kind of spared. You know, some people went to a funeral every week. I didn't go to any funerals during COVID. Grown up in their 40s that I have not, in grief, if you will. Yeah. So it's like, but, you know, to like look around and see in 46 years, this is what this man did. He like connected all these people. He like planted these beautiful seeds, and he really leaned, and he was also really into nature. So he like leaned into helping us think about nature. We had great conversations about it. He wrote a book. His name is Ibrahim Abdul Mateen. He wrote this beautiful book called Green Dean, What Islam Teaches Us About the Environment. So bridging religion and nature. So I say all that to say, it's like, we have limited time to be happy, to do great things, and to kind of leave whatever mark it is that we want to leave. And so for me to sort of be all up in arms about Clarence Thomas hates Black people. Okay. What am I supposed to do about that? Like me hating Clarence Thomas isn't going to make him be like, you know what, Chrissy thinks that I'm a self-loathing Negro. Maybe I should change my ways. You're not. So let me focus on making sure somebody else gets to law school so they can be a jurist one year.
Shifting your grief or not to.
I might be planting the seed in my classroom for someone to one day be on the Supreme Court because of something that they read in my class or something that was said. And they're like, oh, I'm going to be a lawyer. Then I'm going to be a judge. And who knows? But I'm letting my political imagination be as wide and vast as I want it to be. Because obviously, if we think it in that direction, I do believe in the power of thinking, then it's like, then it happens.
Well, we are, I'll say on behalf of everybody that listens to these conversations, very fortunate to be in your light, glad that your seed is planted and that your branches are so long and wise. And we're so happy whenever we get to talk with you because it's just a wonderful, wonderful experience. I always love it. I hate to end it, but I know I must. So thank you very much. I hope my metaphor didn't go too far.
I love being here anytime.
All right, there she goes, Dr. Greer, Dr. Christina Greer. You can find her at Fordham University, get her books, listen to her podcast, follow her on social media, let her know you heard her here. Always love our conversations and hate when they're over. So much fun. Okay, well, as I promised before, listeners yesterday did not like Jeff Daniels doing the Gettysburg Address as much as Danny Glover doing Frederick Douglass's 4th of July speech. And here that is from 2005. It was in LA, part of a reading from Voices of People's History of the United States. And you'll hear the great Howard Zinn, the author, introducing Danny Glover. He was there. So take it away, gentlemen.
Editor of the abolition newspaper, the North Star, was asked to give a speech in 1852 in Rochester on the 4th of July.
Mr. President, friends and fellow citizens, he who could address this audience without a quailing sensation has stronger nerves than I have. I do not remember ever to have appeared as a speaker before an assembly more shrinkingly, nor with greater distrust of my ability than I do this day. A feeling has crept over me quite unfavorably to the exercise of my limited powers of speech. Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and the natural justice embodied in the Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I therefore called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us? Would to God, both for your sake and ours, that an affirmative answer could be truthfully returned to these questions. Then would my task be light and my burden easy and delightful. But such is not the state of the case. I say it with a sad sense of disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought light and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument, is needed. Oh, had I the ability and could reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke. For it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed, and his crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty in which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty an unholy license. Your national greatness swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and quality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There's not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of the United States at this very hour. Go where you may, search where you will, roam through all the monarchies and despocies of the old world. Travel through South America, search out every abuse, and when you have found the last, lay your facts by the side of the everyday practices of this nation, and you will say with me that for revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without a rival.
All right, there goes Danny Glover, powerful and poignant reading of Frederick Douglass, and that is all I have for you today, but I will talk to you tomorrow. I've got comedian J.L. Cavan and the chief scientist of the World Wildlife Fund, Dr. Rebecca Shaw, will join me, at least they're scheduled to. For the first time, she'll be joining me. Very excited about that one. Let me know who you want me to talk to on this show, and I will do my best to get them on the program. Usually can. Sometimes I can't, but usually can. So let me know. StandUpWithPete@gmail.com. That's it. I'm ending it. Talk to you tomorrow right here on Stand Up.